This weekend, the latest film from the director of Parasite, Mickey 17, drops in theaters. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about Mickey 17? And if you haven't seen it yet, what is your excitement level? With that said, let's get started with the good. And what I loved about this film is that it is this big, bold sci-fi film with such a unique voice. It is an adaptation of a book, but a book that came out just a few years back that isn't like this big, gigantic pop phenomenon or something like that. So for most people, it's an original story. It's something new that we're doing. To be clear, I do know it is based off of a book, but it is new to most audiences and told with such a unique, distinct style to it. It's the kind of movie that really only gets made when you just put out a movie that won Best Picture and printed a bunch of money for a studio, where they go, okay, let's trust you to do something big, wild, and crazy. And when he was at that moment when the studios would kind of write him a blank check and spend a whole bunch of money on something very weird, wacky, and not the most obvious of blockbusters, he chose to make a movie like this. And to be clear, this is not a movie like Parasite. It has the commentary that Parasite has, but this is a big, wild, satirical comedy. While I was watching it, a good portion of it, I kept thinking of RoboCop. I saw another guy compare it to Starship Troopers. In either case, you're talking about these Paul Verhoeven movies that are ultra-violent sci-fi with very on-the-nose satire. They're not subtle films, and that's the case here as well, where it's not, it has some action in it, but it's not like a Paul Verhoeven action movie. But all the other stuff that you find in those Paul Verhoeven movies of this satirical world building that is, run by corporations that are so dehumanizing that they've lost any humanity. They're just looking for how to, gain power, stuff like that. That's all over this film. And because of that, it can be really, really funny, both in the overt satire, the irreverent, dark comedy, where so much of what you're watching is Robert Pattinson dying or being treated in such cruel, inhumane manners, but in this just matter-of-fact fashion, that they'll allow just crazy things to be done to him flippantly. And the disconnect between what we're seeing as normal humans and the way that they're reacting to it is so gigantic that there's just something so funny and audacious about the entire experience. From there, you also kind of dive into some of the performances here. The big one for me that stood out was Robert Pattinson, who continues to just show just how versatile of an actor he is, where even in this film, he plays more than two versions, but primarily plays two different versions of the same person that are very different from one another and even have different voices. And both voices are so different from the voice we've heard come out of his face in many, many times before in very high profile projects. And you believe it. Like he does a voice that's very weird that could come off just very cartoonish, but he does it so well that you buy into it. It actually works. And then it's a movie that, we'll talk about this again later in the not so positive section of this, but it's a movie that can be very insightful at times, that in its satire, it's very thought-provoking. And in particular, like, as I left the theater, as people are like, what did you think about it? What did you think about it? It's like, well, I have to think about it before I can even say. And that's a good thing. Like, not every movie is designed that you should walk out of the theater and know immediately what you think about it. There's as I'm reviewing this, I just shot my review for Novocaine. Novocaine is a movie you should probably know exactly what you think about it when you leave the theater. It's designed to be such a present experience. And this is a movie that's designed to make you think about a lot of different things. Once again, we'll talk about that in just a second. But for that reason, you have to process it. And like, okay, what do I make of that? What was he saying there? And I love that a movie was given this kind of budget that's designed to be challenging. It's designed to be off-putting to some people. And it's not a film that was focused, grouped, and optimized for the broadest possible audience and for streaming algorithms or something like that. It's a movie where a guy that had ideas that he wanted to communicate was given a bunch of money to make the movie that he wanted to make in undiluted form. And that's something I want more of. That's more things like that should be brought into the world. I want more of that from Hollywood, and so that should be celebrated with this film. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition for this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. This year I've been trying to eat a lot better and work out more. Factor makes it so much easier and it's so much quicker to eat something that tastes great that also fits in my diet. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience you can't beat. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, choose between things like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. I either go with Keto or Protein Plus because I'm a high protein, low carb kind of guy. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab and go snacks, and more add-ons. I like their protein smoothies to kick off my day, once again, because I really like protein. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. But I also got to say, on the whole, a lot of the film didn't work for me. So let's move on to the bad. And simply put, the movie was just too unfocused. It didn't know how to put boundaries on itself. And it's a film where you get all the good and bad of when you go to someone and go, hey, you made a best picture? That was a very smart, intelligent film that was very entertaining. Now here's $150 million. Do whatever you want. You have free reign. And when you give someone free reign and a blank check, sometimes they run in a few too many directions. That's what this movie felt like to me. And you say, keep going. This is great. Keep going. You don't know when to stop sometimes. And that's how I felt about this film, where it would be doing one thing. I was like, this is so good. This is so funny. It's, like I said, reminded me of Paul Verhoeven in a great way. And then it would introduce some new characters and do something and I'd be like, nope, that's too far. And that's just broad comedy. Like it's not even witty. It's not clever. It's just people doing an over-the-top performance. It's just too wacky. And then it'd go back and be like, oh, here we go. This is that satire I love. This is, oh man, it's pointed. It's cruel, but in the best way possible. And then it'll do something else where it's like, where are you even going with this? Like that, huh? And in particular, the movie kind of keeps introducing these ideas because the beginning part is about the dehumanizing nature of capitalism with this system where you can have an expendable person where they just copy their brain. And so we just print out a new person of them. So it doesn't matter what we do to this expendable copy of the person. So that's the Paul Verhoeven stuff. And then it starts getting into colonizing. And it's this whole other direction that the themes don't like complement each other. And so they're kind of competing. And then it's about like political power and religious figures and the absurdity of it all and the ego that comes with power and it's like all of these ideas are in here, and while it's cohesive in its tone, it's all over the place in its storytelling and exploration of those ideas. And that's where it struggled for me. That it just tried to do too much in a single film. And some of it worked better than other things, but I think all of it, at the end of the day, felt underdeveloped. That's just what it was trying to do so many things that all of it ends up being undercooked. Where it would introduce ideas and you'd be like, that's kind of interesting. But instead of unpacking that, there's so many implications there with the nature of copying people, and there's little things that kind of happen where there's just quirks in his different personality quirks with each different version of him. Those are ideas that you like want to unpack of like, who is he really? Has he been lost forever? Is each version like, what do you make? Like, they're great concepts that are not explored. And then we kind of go over to this other idea with a very simplistic exploration of colonizing with no nuance, no subtlety, just these people are cruel that they think they own everything and they have control and they look down on everything. Like, it's just so black and white that there's no insight to it. Because the movie isn't really about that. That's just like almost like a subplot that's kind of thrown in there. And I just wish that we picked 2 of our 5 big ideas and really unpacked those 2 and had something to say about them rather than just touching on so many different things. And then some people will celebrate these, but the Mark Ruffalo performance, I just thought was just too much. That I know we're doing satire, but this is just full-blown cartoon of just this absurdly stupid person that is a caricature of the shallow politician. He's the caricature of the charismatic pastor. He's the caricature of the newsman. It's like he's all of these at the same time, which kind of going back to what I was talking about of like that it doesn't pick a focus. And so we have this guy that we're now commenting on politicians, religious leaders, television personalities, and how we worship and follow celebrities blindly, even though they're morons. It does all of that in the same person, and so all of it is just broad and shallow. And I was kind of okay with it at the beginning, and then it kind of kept going, and it just got too silly. And in particular, the religious stuff just seemed so hollow. It was just such superficial, like, look how stupid these people are singing songs. That was the depth of the commentary. This guy's stupid. Look at this stupid religious song he's singing while being so utterly cruel and lacking in empathy. But it doesn't, like, it wasn't anything beyond that. So that's the frustration of this film for me, that I want Hollywood to do more things like this. Like, take chances, big, bold swings. It is an adaptation, but largely like this original story of that's saying something. It's made for a specific audience, not a broad audience. At the same time, I think the movie could have been much better if tightened, focused, and we pick a few of these things to go deep on rather than try and doing all of them at the same time, in which case it just got really messy and sloppy. And even in just trying to like do some of the storytelling, it gets pretty odd at times in just trying to hop between all of these different things that it's doing. Overall, it's a B- on the entertainment scale. It's a 7 out of 10. And Bong fans, you should definitely go see this one in the theater. If you're not someone that's a cinephile super duper into sci-fi or Bong's films, perhaps you can wait to stream this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep talking movies.